Time now for the Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.
This is the 5th anniversary of the BLM/George Floyd protests and riots. I want to remind you of what then President Kamala Harris said on the Steve Colbert Show, number 20.
Clear that I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not.
Now, the reason I want cops to call in is because of a front page article in the Los Angeles Times, a newspaper that I read so you don't have to. And the article really is about all the payouts that the city has had to make because of the LAPD's response to the people in the streets protesting the death of George Floyd. Quote, use of projectiles, says the subheadline, at 2020 rallies has cost $11.9 million in awards and settlements and remains controversial. Big headline above that one, 5 years after Floyd protests, LA paying for police tactics. So the article is all about the amount of money that the cities had to pay because of the tactics the LAPD used. What is minimized is the damage done to the morale of the LAPD because so many officers quit, retired early because they felt that the city and the leadership of the LAPD did not have their back. The article does mention, deep into the article, quote, today, get this, the LAPD is nearly 1,300 officers smaller than it was when Floyd died, with fewer cops on the force than at any point since 1995, mirroring nationwide declines in police staffing. In other words, this is happening all over America in big cities, in New York, in Chicago, in Baltimore, in St. Louis, in Newark. Police departments are understaffed post-George Floyd compared to pre-George Floyd because officers have said, to hell with it, I'm out of here. No one has my back. I can't engage in proactive policing. What's the point? So the article in the Los Angeles Times notes that arrests are down. So, fewer officers means longer response time, means that the odds of a bad guy being caught, being convicted, and being incarcerated gone down. Crime tends to go up, and the people most hurt by this increase in crime are the very people, black and brown, living in the inner city that people on the left purport to care about. I've talked to you at length about a data scientist, former data scientist at Thomson Reuters, named Isaac Kriegman, who supported Black Lives Matter, thought it was a legitimate movement, until he did his research. And he found out in cities where there was a high-profile black person killed by the hands of the police. He looked at the crime levels before this happened, crime levels after it happened, and the crime levels increased. He called them excess deaths, meaning deaths that otherwise would not have occurred if the police had still engaged in proactive policing. One study just looked at 5 cities, just 5, and found out in the years following the death of George Floyd, nearly 1,000 people had died who otherwise would be alive. And that's just deaths. You look at other kinds of crime, you can make the same argument. Police demoralized and try to recruit new officers. If there is a stigma, if the police departments are perceived to be systemically racist, how in the world are you going to recruit people to join a department that is perceived to be systemically racist? This is the aftermath of George Floyd, and we are still paying the price 5 years later. Quote, says the article in the LA Times. On Thursday, LA City Council signed off on a $14 billion spending plan for 2025-2026 that cuts funding for police recruitment in order to avoid laying off hundreds of city workers. So because of the mismanagement of this city, typical of cities run by Democrats, there isn't a single Republican on city council. Roughly, was it 14, 15 seats? Not one Republican. Their priorities are climate change. Their priorities are not the number one job of government, which is to protect people and property.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel. Stay informed anytime, anywhere with the Salem News Channel and 9:30 a.m. TheAnswer.com. This has been The Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.